I would like to call the Board of Education work session and meeting together on March 8th, 2023, and it is about 6:04, and we'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Second item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do you have any changes or?
I would like to propose an amendment to move item 11A G,
1G.
yeah, 1G and
One G.
O
1O.
to remove them for this time because of concerns over the financing of the funding of programs by outside entities. Have concerns over the language that's in the current administrative regs. And would like to
Make
meet on
the
that.
amendment, and then if the second, then we can have discussion on it. We can discuss it. Any, a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by John. Okay, discussion.
There's a concern that in the funding regulations or the funding program, it's not clear how certain things would be funded between the student organizations and organizations like POPs or Benchwarmers or other entities that run funding things, the Cognitive Project Graduation, the Community Roundup, which is done by kids. And it requires parent certification for everybody that's involved. You know, it just seems a little bit overkill. And so that several of those groups have asked that it be considered. Doug has suggested that we have talked about it at the next policy meeting, which is the 15th of March.
Was this already brought to policy? Because this is the second read and vote.
It is the second read. Yeah.
So did policy already,
Recommended
Discuss
to
it?
move forward. Yeah.
and they did recommend to move forward with it?
Yeah, but most of the issues that have been raised are in the administrative regulations. I mean, there's another way to resolve this, it's to move it all to the 5,000 series, which is what we've recommended by the policy committee, and then deal with the administrative regulations under that item as well. There's two ways to deal with it.
Look, because the policy changes on this one actually came from Shipman and Goodwin. These are statutory changes.
Yeah.
So,
But it clearly doesn't deal with groups that are running funding programs for the students.
so.
It's not clear.
Is
Uh,
this?
Can
is
you
this-
tell me what you, like a specific, because I don't,
Well, like the project, the community roundup, it requires no kids who go door to door.
right,
Kids go door to door to pick up stuff like that.
well, they
I
shouldn't.
think the policy change actually
They haven't.
on that is.
Yeah, that's been a drop
fundraising.
off lately. That's
No,
Yeah.
but even pickup, I think door to door fundraising is different than community roundup. I think community roundup has always been supervised picking up, they're not knocking on doors soliciting fundraising, correct?
No, they're just picking up cans of food,
Correct, so it's not the same as community roundup, but
but they
if
also
we
get
want to
money.
take it back to give clarification, but I don't think any of the changes for Shipman and Goodwin really actually could affect any current fundraising we currently have.
Well, there's also issues of crowdfunding in that, right? Apparently there has been some crowdfunding through our athletic department this year that's not been authorized.
What is the con?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what's the con to postponing it? Like, I think I totally understand the pro, which is to allow for people who have concerns to be heard, but
And if I could speak
Yeah.
to that too, we didn't hear these concerns the last couple of months, and that's not
Totally.
the fault of any of
This
these
one out.
folks, so. I heard from somebody yesterday, Bob heard from somebody, and so
I got one today.
we were just asking for a little more time, especially since policy meets next week. We may end up going forward, even the folks that I've spoken to, they're not asking that we not have the policy.
they want
They just want to make sure we considered and maybe it's okay the way it is. They just want to make sure that it is. So that's why I made that recommendation.
We have to
Yes.
defer to the attorneys because.
That policy is, it's actually on policy, we recommended that go to policy 5,000. So we're currently on policy 2 on a first read. So we will be getting to 5,000 eventually, and that will be completely re-looked at that time. So we could amend it, or we could just move it to 5,000. or
As
look
is.
at it.
As it is, which wasn't an issue before. Move it as is without making changes to it. Is
The
that what you're
policy
saying?
committee recommended adopting the commitment policy and moving
Mm-hmm.
it to item 5,000 and have the full discussion under 5,000 when we brought it back. But the issues that are being raised are in the regulations, which are approved by the superintendent.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm not exactly sure if we just went ahead and moved it to 5,000. How long it would take to get there? As we've talked about, maybe kind of holding off a little bit on policies until we get past the budget. So it might take a few more months to get there.
I think
In the
goal is to
past-
be there was by June 15th.
In the past, we have gotten recommendations from Shipman and Goodwin, and we have made changes. And all we do is if we make the changes, then we resubmit it back to Shipman and Goodwin, and they let us know if they're legal, if they're kosher, whatever. And so it's not just that we make changes and then they go forward. No, they're rechecked again by Shipman and Goodwin.
So
So
the
it's not
the fact
just
that the
out
current regulations and the policy don't match, do we have regulations that allow for crowdfunding, but we don't on the policy?
No, we don't have any regulations regarding crowdfunding.
So
We
we
have- we
currently
have been
would
a-
have
we have,
GoFundMe's within.
We don't have any GoFundMe's. There was
We've opposed that in the past.
highlighted for athletics, a online fundraiser, but not a GoFundMe platform. Just to see if we then wanted to bring it and ask it, that would be something that the board would want to put the policy. The two sports have done it so far.
We do have another policy next Wednesday, Bob, at 4, I believe, right?
So if
Right.
this is just a
It'll be
clarifying
right next week.
question, if it stays as is. What happens is that policy moves to the 5,000
And would be revisited. when
and
we
would
got
be
there.
revisited.
Correct.
If we vote to not have it in there. It means that it would actually be discussed probably faster. Because it would be at the policy meeting next week
Next
rather than.
That was my suggestion, since these concerns came in and they're fresh on
Oh.
people's minds that we
I
hear them.
just, like I said, I'm
Hear
just
them
trying
next
to,
week and, but I didn't want to hold up later part of the meeting and getting bogged down on these two. I thought policy committee would be better setting to
We're
consider.
getting 5,000.
Then we're getting.
So I think going forward, unless there's any further major discussion or something different to say, a motion to accept the amendment that was made and seconded to table the policies under 11A1G and 11A10. Can I have someone make that motion, please? Oh.
It already
right,
did,
we have the amendment.
You have to
Okay,
vote on it.
sorry.
Is this-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we will table those at this time. Okay,
Another
moving,
amendment to change the second read. I'd like to make a motion to table the first reads of policy committee for the 2000 series until next meeting. Correct?
oh,
the first
I'm
reads.
hoping,
Sorry, the first reads, right?
Items 11A2. In total, right? And the-
11-2, well, it's not the
All of
11-2.
I will second.
And
that.
just so that will give us some more time to work on what we need.
what was that?
I said, I will second that. Yeah, I am
Any
good.
discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor, to table, 11A2, the first read, all those items until our next meeting or
Next regular.
next,
Just
well, I would probably
the
almost say.
next
the
regular
next-
meeting is
the
a
next
short
meeting, the
meeting
next
because of the
meeting is
budget
very
hearing, so
short.
we could try to squeeze them in, but that wouldn't give much time for anything else that night, probably.
We might, we might
We could
move
start
into.
ear- we could start earlier that day.
Here we are. Okay. All right, any other discussion? All in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, I do want to make one comment, is that it's very important that when we speak, we have microphones that are around, that we speak loud enough. I had the opportunity to listen to the meeting that I missed. And there were a few times when I kind of missed what people were saying, I just couldn't hear it. And I mean, I cranked up my computer, so, I mean, for the most part, everybody's good, but, you know, kind of talk like you're trying to reach people at the end there, you know, talk like a teacher, and although not all teachers talk.
You're
about
right.
it,
It
they
does
should.
seem to be the beginning of the meeting. We're all pretty good. As we
Right.
get tired, we tend to get more soft-spoken.
Right. So I might be reminding you from time to time, but I think it's really important because what you have to say is important. and We want to make sure people hear it. Okay, moving on to,
To approve the agenda as a whole now.
What's that?
We have to approve the agenda
Oh.
as amended.
I thought we voted on that.
No.
Oh, no, we voted to make, okay, so, a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Thank
So
you.
moved. Second.
Moved by Lindsay, second by Amanda, all in favor, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions? Okay, thank you. Item number 3, anticipated executive session. We would need a motion, to go into executive session to review an attorney-client privileged communication regarding Memorial School. And we will be inviting, Doug and Kim.
I'll make that motion.
So Lindsay, second. Seconded?
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jason. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we're going into.
Also, if you're
Director,
able,
take
we
your
also
chair.
invite you to take a chair with you.
There's only 4 chairs.
It's like
here.
4 or 5 of them. in there.
Bob gets it. If you're able, you're not the high class organization. BYOC.
Or you can keep your chair, you're the farthest away from Bob.
Yeah.
I'll bring mine. Lucy, Lucy, don't bring yours, I'll bring mine.
Oh, sure, definitely. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Silver Petroselli presentation. Before you begin, I would just want to take a couple of minutes to say a few words. The board in the past with different members throughout the years has been researching and exploring a number of options to address consolidating schools due to declining enrollments. Options that make the best education experience for our children and that are fiscally responsible. I have documented here, and I'll show you these papers because they're a little bit dog-eared. I've had them in my file cabinet tucked in the back since 2017 and 2016, where the board has already gone through multiple reconfigurations and configurations and costs and all that for quite a few number of years. So this process, like I said, has been going on for quite a number of years. Unfortunately, any progress on the reconfiguration will stop because of COVID. The most recent reconfiguration decision that the board made was the least expensive alternative, though it was better than the existing grade configuration. But it wasn't the best education decision. It included the closing of one school, and that reconfiguration, however, was voted down by the community, leaving the district to have to go back to the drawing board to come up with an alternate reconfiguration. The present memorial proposal for K-5, where all the students in both Durham and Middlefield will attend together from the beginning of their school time, is the best educational configuration that not only provides for consolidation of all education services from K-5, but also provides equal school time attendance to both communities and provides the option to possibly close 2 schools. However, this option comes with a higher price tag, which is why it wasn't chosen in the past. We are here tonight to learn about the details of the project, which the board approved the concept of a K-5 at Memorial in the past, and the costs, and to ask questions. Tonight's presentation is simply that, a presentation. It is not an approval by the board, but it is a starting point to move forward with the reconfiguration of the district. And now I pass it on to you.
Thank you. And I've been involved in all of those studies since 2016.
Oh, yeah, it's
so
been
we've
all
seen it
Silver
all, but this is-
Petroselli, right on the.
It's the first time we're studying a K-5 at Memorial. And I'm Michelle from Silver Petroselli, where I'm an architect. We're a 50% architecture, engineering, and interior design firm. And with me, I have Andrew Woodward from Benesh, civil engineering, and Glastonbury, and landscape architect. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so really what we're looking at is how can Memorial School function as a K-5 elementary school? We're going to review the existing building. We do have a lot of, we're very familiar with the building. We recently completed the roof project there and the mechanical project there. We're going to review your enrollment projections and determine the program. We had some meetings with your educators who were phenomenal, giving great advice on what's needed to support this school. And we're also going to look at the school construction grant program to see what your reimbursement would be. We'll explore the layouts and then determine the anticipated costs. Kim, do we have a copy of this?
I can get one.
Okay, because I can't put around with it.
Andrew will take you through the site.
I don't think this is the slideshow though. I think we have the PDF.
She's presenting the PDF that we did in PowerPoint, and we did update it today and sent it to her. So there's a little update from the previous version.
Lindsay, instead of printing, do you mind just moving so you can watch it tonight and then I can print it to you after?
So this is showing an aerial of the existing site, which also shows the new renovations to the tennis courts that added pickleball, basketball, Foursquare, and enhance that area. You can see a general area of where the existing septic system is, where the wells are, the church lot, and you can kind of see a line through the field. It's a drainage ditch, and that is that's kind of like the property line that could be purchased to, that you'll see in the later slide of how the site has been developed utilizing that lot. And then obviously there's only one main entry point to this, this site. So looking at the program, you'll see on the later slides how we tried to hit all the numbers and get all of the wants and the needs put onto this property.
So next we looked at the existing program at Memorial. You can see that we highlight this in color, the blue being your general classrooms, purple, your special education, the light purple is your specials, your art and your music. Your media center over there in the octagon that we just put the roof on. And your physical education is the green, dark green being the stage, food service over there in the cafeteria. And your administration is the orange color. And then everything else is kind of gray, being the mechanical spaces and the circulation. And we kind of tally that up. And this is something we've been tracking through elementary schools that we work on, so we can kind of see what's typical. Anyway, you have a 48,000 net square foot building, and you're going to hear me talk about net and gross. I know that there's some confusion possibly with net and gross, but right now we're kind of just talking about net square feet, and that's the inside of the building, not taking the exterior walls. Okay, the next slide. I'm going to go quickly through these. This is just a more detailed spreadsheet, so you can see some of the classrooms. In my experience working here, a lot of complaints about the classrooms have been made, that they're a little bit small, and some of them are. In the original 1950s portion of the building, they're pretty spot on over the 800 where we like to see them, but in the 1960s, 93, they're a little bit smaller. So we were hoping to address that, and we'll walk through that later. There's some special ed classes all listed, all the square footage in detail, and just there for your reference. I don't really need to go in detail through it all.
I just emailed the board the baseline. Thank you.
Okay, this sums up your administration pieces and your infrastructure. Next slide. In September of 2022, you had your enrollment projections updated, which is perfect because we need to grab that number, and I'm highlighting the K-5 column, and we're going to take the 720 students and use that for the purpose of this study. Slide. So now to get into the school construction grant program, the Department of Administration, the Office of School Construction, runs a lot of these projects and reimburses you. A large renovation project such as this would be on their priority list, which you need to apply by June 30th. To get on that list, they would submit it in December. In a little while, you'll see their list that they gave this year. And what you need to do to get on that list is apply, have your ed specs, resolutions, and authorized fundings for your share of this project, and we'll get into that. It's the reimbursement rates. Here we can get a reimbursement rate of 52.14%. New construction, they do downgrade to 42.14% because they really are trying to encourage towns to reuse their buildings where feasible. And the starting point of the process is really defining the ed specs. And that's what this is kind of the beginning of, understanding what this building needs to function as your K-5 school. So the chart on the side is exactly how we kind of compute how large the building can be. We put in the 720 students, the grade levels that they are. They also offer a benefit for any schools older than 1959, which a lot of Memorial is. So we kind of add that square footage in, and you kind of get a rebate, allowing you to maximize the size, because in the 50s, things were a little bit less efficient. So they are recognizing that. So with that, we're allowed to add on possibly 48,883 net square feet inside the building. Next slide. So over the last 2 months or so, we met a couple times with your group of educators. Starting with the classroom, we did determine that based on your maximum class size policies and overlaying that with the projections to determine how many classrooms you actually needed. And from there, we got together and to understand all the other needs, your special education needs, the specials. You have to understand that we're going from 233 students at this building to 720. So these spaces need to increase. One art room is not going to suffice to to the enrollment numbers. So we need to add 2. We need to have 2 musics. The special ed again also increased. The media center or learning commons. The existing one has also been a problem that's been brought up. The shape of it, the size of it isn't really working, and the size at 2,786 isn't going to support a school of this size. So we do need to increase that. The existing gym also is complained about. It is a little bit smaller if you want to get an elementary sized court in there. So we're looking at trying to improve that, which I'll take you through when we get to the floor plan. Food service, it was brought up that 2 cafeterias would be nice. So we kind of came up with a concept there just to break that up. Next is administration, which we came up with based on our experience working in elementary schools and some of the discussions we had. And then infrastructure. Some of it's taking a guess based on our knowledge of schools and what we know about this school. So we're kind of coming up with what we think the mechanicals would be, what we think the bathroom quantities need to be. And then as we get into circulation and structure, we apply a factor to that to build that up and then get our overall size, which came up to 112,476, which is over the space standards. So kind of there, we're just noting that your reimbursement rate would get degraded to a 44.58%. We aren't recommending that. We know you want to maximize that reimbursement. We ended here with this program with being cognizant that we're going to try to minimize that as we move forward. Holding on to Memorial, they have existing spaces that we're going to work with. So this is just kind of the wish list summing up what everyone was looking for. And not to skip over the site, we have an estimated buses quantity, so our site needs to fit that. We have vehicles that for staff and parents that we need to accommodate, and then all the wish list items, keeping those pickleball courts and adding all these outdoor learning environments and a lot of great amenities that Andrew can now take you through on the site plan that we are proposing.
All right. So working through our concept for the site, two of the big items that we started off with was a separate bus entrance and a separate parent drop off, as well as keeping the newly renovated courts. So the additions, the entries to the building and everything, we wanted to maintain a connection between the two, but without interfering with those courts. So in this scheme, now you can kind of see the church property to the west on the screen. We utilized almost the entirety of that space to create a large bus loop that can accommodate all 16 projected buses. And that one parking space meets your estimated employee parking spaces of 147. So just that one parcel there, allows that separate bus drop off and has all that faculty parking. Maintaining the existing parking lot, but just doing a reconfiguration, pushing the loop road to the outsides and making the parking more on a horizontal access. We have one-way traffic going in. So when you pull into the smaller parking lot, pulling off to the right, it'll have all the parents go up in a loop, be able to drop off at that lower yellow section there, which is the secondary entrance. And there's also a concrete path that'll get you to the main entrance if that's the goal. Again, protecting the courts was an item that we focused on. The existing roundabout, we were able to turn this into an outdoor play area. So we have lawn space, play structures, seating, more blacktop area with some forest square, and a basketball court that we put on. You can do the sideways court, so we have 6 hoops on that as well. And the existing to the east side of the building, there's an existing custodial entrance. So when you look at this site plan a little closer, you'll see the sidewalk coming off of off of the parent drop off is a little wider. That's going to accommodate the custodial vehicles or any maintenance vehicle that needs to go back there can drive on that path and get to that back loading dock. Working our way up the site, we just did we maintained the town soccer field location. We just did a little modification, sliding the baseball, softball to the south and creating two identical smaller soccer fields for the students of the school. Another big piece for the site was sensory paths and walkways. So we maintained pathways out of every classroom door that goes around each building, as well as utilizing some of the existing woodlands in the back to have sensory paths, which can be a stone dust or some other kind of. Yes,
Sorry,
sir.
while you're on that, you may or may not have perused the property, but when I went to the school, that back corner had access to Wadsworth Falls State Park. Is that still an option? Because that's, to me, one of the best parts of this whole thing.
I was unaware of that, but that could be a good possibility to have an
Your
entrance
neighborhood
there.
might have gotten in the way, but I'm not.
It's definitely because that's how my kids and I walk to play on
You
the
walk
playground
into
right
it.
now. We walk right through that.
So there is
Forest.
access.
Yeah.
So
Walking access? or-
There's a
Yes.
trail, there's walking access,
Good.
because right above where you guys stopped at the top is our neighborhood. Yep, on the other side of the woods.
So that's an added bonus to the sensory, to the walks and the outdoor space. And also, again, as Michelle said, this list has all of the wants and the needs. So you can see all the additions are in a light yellow. In between the two smaller additions, you can see we put a greenhouse in there with a garden area. There's a large courtyard back there that comes out of the media area. And then off of the octagon room, which is a large special ed building, that's where we have the sensory play, the fence and sensory play, and the sandbox and the fine motor area. So trying to just work through the site and keep everything that's wanted to cap. This is kind of what we came up with to make everything flow. Just connections to every door, going around the entire building, modifying the fields, adding more play space, and being able to accommodate the large increase in students. Which I think we'll get to in another slide. So we can, I'll talk about the septic in the.
This is option one. This is.
Yes, we only presented on one option. The other option we had going was bigger. So this was the most efficient.
Oh, my. It's bigger.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. This is our. It looks cut off. Okay, so. Yeah, something. There we go, okay. So at the top, I did put a key plan. The gray area is your existing building. And the orangish color is the additions we're proposing. So our concept here was to add the K in one wing, mainly because these rooms were requested to have kindergarten, we definitely need it. But first grade also was requested to have bathrooms within the classrooms. So building this wing, and they're also bigger rooms. So building that wing makes more sense than trying to retrofit some of the classrooms here. But with that concept, we wanted to create houses for 2 grades at a time. So we've extended the wings on the other existing wings to accommodate the 2-3 wing and the 4-5 wing. And then we've also ended those with a special ed classroom resource type of room. They were asked to be kind of spread around, easy walking distance from all ends of the building. So you can see that we also kind of added some orange color you'll see in the plan. Those are workrooms and some storage area for staff. So that's, each 2 grades can be combined to have that there with this big kind of sprawling school. It's nice to have some little work areas for your staff there. Now taking you back to the main entrance there, where the two orange areas where we're proposing to have administration in those spaces. And just to be clear, this is very diagrammatic. They won't be big rooms like that. It'll be broken up into offices and different spaces, the nurses suite. We like this because it has visual on the whole site. Your nurse can actually have a door out and get sick kids out of the building quickly, things like that. But then the rest of this corridor, well, I'll stop for a second. The octagon there, your existing media center, we're proposing to turn that into a special ed. It'll be broken up into different rooms, maybe the conference room they want in the center there. And just kind of localizing some of that right there with your administration. And then continuing down this corridor, it kind of acts as the main street, having all your shared resources there. Turning, we go to the existing cafeteria. It was asked to have a second cafeteria, so we're kind of enlarging that kitchen in the middle and creating a second path there, putting that second entry kind of at the gym, enlarging that. The gym, we eliminated the stage. It's not ADA compliant, and some of what we talked about is building more of a platform. It would be about 18 inches high, which is typical in elementary schools today, and you can easily get a ramp up there, and we can connect that stage to the band room. Band and music you see there in purple. Across from the Learning Commons. Band and music also has some shared practice rooms and storage areas between the two. The Learning Commons is partially your existing building, but we're proposing to bump that out into the courtyard to create that larger, nice central space. And then your art classroom is in its existing location, but we're just adding another one across the hall there, enlarging that room a little bit. And that kind of sums up the main high points of the plan. And again, kind of sprinkling some of the special ed around. Next, I'll let Andrew talk about the site costs.
So there are some big numbers on here, but I'll go over kind of what they mean. I'd say the biggest one on here is there's a threshold for there's a threshold in Connecticut for a Connecticut DPH well versus deep Connecticut deep well. So if the gallons per day of wastewater that's going to go into the septic system, if it exceeds 681 students, that would trigger the construction of a DEP well. And that is a 18-month permitting process, a $200,000 design fee, and it's listed on there, roughly 1.5 million. So that is that's definitely an expensive well, and we based all of our numbers off of the projected student numbers at 720. However, if it were possible to keep that number under 680, you wouldn't trigger a DEP well, DEP septic system, sorry, and that would save some money. There are options for the existing system, getting it scoped and inspected to see if it actually can be efficient for the burst in population. However, it's more likely gonna need at least an addition to the existing septic, if not a new septic, but not just a regular DPH septic. So
You haven't done any soil analysis to determine if there's capacity there either, though, right?
no, that would be down the road. This is more conceptual numbers for the project. And then for the wells in the back, those also will need to be inspected to see what their capacity is, what the gallons per day is. And there is a contingency in here for I believe it's 250,000 for either new well or multiple wells, depending on how much water the new school needs.
When you talk about the number that triggers the DEP system, did you subtract what the existing system already covers? How many people, or is it just You go by the full 7.
Yeah, it just goes by the building. And it's 8 gallons per day per student. And 3 gallons per day for kitchen. And if it was a building that had showers, you would add another 3 gallons per day per student for that as
So
well.
they don't consider what's already there and just consider the new under whatever you might need in addition to what's already there that can accommodate.
Yeah, no, I don't believe so.
Okay.
It's gotta work, and so, it's 5,000 gallons is the cutoff number to get a DEP permit for it, and you have to do design of soil analysis, design, it's more than just
I mean, it's just, there's already some existing capacity. I'm surprised that's not considered.
it may be considered in the design, but you still have to get a permit.
Well, that's what I meant.
And the Connecticut DPH system, that's a lot more common. It's a lot easier to get that approved and to go through rather than getting into the 18-month backlog of trying to get a large system. So that's a big number for the site overall.
I just have one other question.
Yes.
All that you mentioned that might be needed, have they already been factored into here, or are there some additional fees that could be added because of what you mentioned, some of those requirements?
The DEP system is on this spreadsheet, so that the 1.5 million is part of these numbers.
Okay,
So that's a quick removal if the enrollment can be lowered. The projected enrollment can be lowered below 680, then it wouldn't trigger that, and that would be a large cost savings.
I was just wondering if there was, in addition to what's already on here, if there's any additional costs of what you're explaining coming forward. I mean, if it's all in here, at least we don't have to say, well, there's still something else that's not in here yet.
Right, yeah, I mean,
all
we
the
have
costs are here.
contingencies in place, and they're based on inspections and what's found that can alter costs slightly, but not in large jumps
Not
of
more, but maybe less.
millions. Less is also possible sometimes too. So it all depends on materials and program. When it comes to site,
And does this include an estimate for acquiring the church property?
We have that in the next slide.
That's in
And
the-
it's
that's in
it's
the-
pretty much a guess, though.
Right.
So yeah, so this, I'm not gonna go through the whole list. But the church parking lot, that's a brand new parking lot, so it's all the bituminous asphalt, the curbing, the island curbing, the existing parking lot needs a whole new facelift, so that has numbers in there for repaving, new curbing, sidewalks, the existing, all the main entries and exits, so the main entrance, colored concrete, or unit pavers, the costs vary depending, so we put unit pavers on here, which is the more expensive per square foot option. Colored concrete or even just a regular broom finish is a cost savings. Outside of the learning commons, that's also a unit paver area, so all the kind of like colored areas outside the entrances, that's what we're focused on, being the unit pavers in this example. And the blue areas underneath the play structures, that would be all your rubber play surfacing.
With regard to the church property, I know there's a small culvert there. Are you aware if there's any wetlands that have to be considered? It
Yes.
doesn't look like it's a wetland
No, there's
property.
not.
Okay.
There's not. It's just it's actually a very nice gentle
Pretty
slope
flat. Yeah,
going
it's
down
flat.
over to that. It won't even require a retaining wall on that side. We kept I think like 25 or 30 feet off of that, the center line of that.
Mhm.
So we could just grade it out a nice 2% slope and we wouldn't have any issues. And then for site furnishings, just kind of went with the typical bicycle racks. We have benches, waste receptacles, entrance sign. We added the greenhouse on here with the garden beds, basketball hoops, drinking fountains, flagpole. So all of your standard site furnishings are all in the spreadsheet as well.
Okay, we can go to the next slide, where it kind of compiles all this together. So we start with the demolition. We come up with a number based on the square footage. There's very little demolition. We have the portables in the back, and then we're kind of messing where the stage goes a little. So we have a little cost associated with that. We also put an abatement allowance in. It's 200,000 and fairly typical for a school of this size, of that age. Maybe that's a little high. I'm kind of hoping it's not going to be that much. And then with renovations, so renovate as new is what we're calling the 49,000 square feet. We're taking the gross square feet now. So you see a change in our numbers, and that's all about getting to the outside of the building. We want to include windows and those kind of things. So we're taking that whole building and we apply $400 a square foot. That's typical for this phase at the conceptual level. So we come up with just under 20 million just to renovate the existing building. And then we take our new additions, which total at 56,000 square feet. Today we build thicker walls than exists in the existing building. So the gross square feet does increase a little more on our addition. And we take $550 per square foot, totaling that at 30.8 million. And then we put an allowance in there for the site purchase. I kind of went online, I saw an acre for 100,000 and figured this is 2.5. Get a deal from the church, hopefully, and it's even less. I don't know. So I kind of put something in there just as a placeholder.
Yeah,
And
and
then-
then we didn't look at zoning or anything, because I'm not sure what that's zoned.
I don't recall. I'm not so sure. We can look into that. Okay, and then so then we took Vanesh's site development number. If you look, I did not take their contingency with it. I just took their base number because then we are going to add contingencies on this total project here. So I took their 4.6 number and then we add a design and estimating contingency of 10% on. Again, pretty typical at this phase because we don't know a lot of the design yet. It's pretty conceptual. So we get a subtotal of your hard construction number at just over $61 million. So then we want to add soft costs on top of that. And typically soft costs are around 25%, maybe a little more. So we broke that up into an owner's contingency, which we recommend an owner typically keeps for a while in the project. As the project moves forward, it does reduce, but again, the project will be more developed at that point.
I'm sorry, excuse me. It's a
sure.
little late in the presentation. Is this being projected out? Yes. And recorded? Okay, thank you. Late.
We add an anticipated material and testing fee. These are fees that are associated with the structure when you pour concrete, when you put up steel. And we kind of figure out how many days they're going to be out there based on the amount of additions. And this one does have kind of additions all over. So we have a little bit of a higher number there for that. Environmental fees, that'll be the hazmat consultant associated with that 200,000 above. Permit fees, borings, this will have to be done around where we have the additions to check the soil. And then anticipated design fees, typically it's around 7%. As Andrew mentioned, the higher one with the septic, I'm like, oh, maybe it'd be more with that, but I'm not, I think it's fine at this phase. We did put an anticipated CM fee. I know that was a question brought up. We do recommend a CM for a project of this scale. It's actually hard these days to find a GC that would be able to bond a project such as this. And a CM will really make the process a whole lot easier. They come in early in the project, work with us, the design team, to make sure we're keeping this out, in budget. And then it goes out to bid. You're not going to be as surprised as you could be sometimes with a GC. They're really on top of it. We did put in a fee, a 2% for an owner's rep. Typically, again, projects of this size would have that. They help with the state process and filing, and it's pretty a valuable resource unless there's someone within the district that is going to do that. And then anticipated FF&E. We are assuming you're going to go all new furniture, all new technology, and that's what this number incorporates. It's a number based on the student quantity. So if we reduce students, that's going to come down, or we can also talk about reducing what we had there. And then the sad part of today is escalation. If you caught us a couple months ago, we would have said even higher than 6%, but things seem to be leveling out to some degree, and we're holding 6% a year. we should escalate really to the midpoint of construction. So at this point, we just put a two-year escalation in at 12%. And that brings you to a total cost of $83,759,987. And when you break that out by our square foot, our gross square foot number, that's at about $798 a square foot. And then if you look under the little diagram we have here, we look at what your reimbursement would look like. And you would get reimbursed $43.6 million. So the regional share would be just over 40 million.
Now, if we went with this project and it took a couple years, do these prices change or are these fixed?
The escalation should increase
The
every
escalation.
year, 6% at this point. But
But
years
it's already
ago,
in here.
before
It's already in
COVID,
here for 2 years.
only 2 right now.
So technically, whatever amounts are on here are what they would be if we were gonna go ahead with it.
Yes.
Except for things.
And typically we were doing 2 to 3% a year prior to COVID and everything. So,
I have a quick question.
sure.
Is any of this taking security into, as far as windows, front lobby area, cameras, buzzing systems?
Yeah, our costs should have all of that in there. I mean, obviously, if you guys wanted security glass over the whole building, no, we don't have that.
So is there any of that right now? in any of
Yes,
this?
conceptually there is. It's
Where?
like, it's just in that square foot number.
And cameras is in this price as well?
Cameras would be in this, yeah. It's all typical of the school.
And my understanding is this is at the, like you said, it's conceptual. So the idea is this is what's required for all the paperwork so that we can get into the queue for reimbursement. But not necessarily, like, there's going to be other conversations about very specific. So like, we don't have to have that conversation here. This is just this is what the
big
state needs to
picture.
give us some money.
Yes.
Yes, and if I could, I think we said this before, this is not the design.
Yep.
This is a potential design that they've come up with.
Mhm.
If this goes forward, it would be put out. Other architects, including them, if they're interested, could bid on it, and we would see all kinds of competing designs. This is to allow us to have solid cost estimates if we wish to pursue it, to know that we can reasonably afford it, to your question, Lucy, but also so the state would certify it for the reimbursement, which is really important.
So if this
Yep.
isn't the actual design and we would go out and get other designs, the number could be different. Is that what you're saying?
I can speak to that.
I can tell you my experience in Virginia, but I'll let Michelle be the expert. So.
If we got a job like that from someone else, we have to stick to that number. So they're gonna design to that number. That's the goal.
I'm only asking because if there's different designs, I mean, I see things in this design that I don't think are certainly necessary. That's why I was wondering if there would be a change in numbers.
So we would look at this, like, this isn't necessarily what would go to the state. If there were things that we could remove, like Michelle and Andrew said, based on the septic system or whatever, that would bring the number down before we actually put it into the state. But then what I hear Michelle saying is once that number is there, then they have to stay within that, because this.
If you actually go to the next slide, I can kind of explain that a little more. The next slide is the priority list that was released this year for the projects with the state now. And at the top, you'll see their A category. Those are all new buildings. The B categories is a variety of alterations and renovations. And basically, this kind of aligns with our costs. So right now, these projects are out to bid for architects, like the Cheshire projects. I think they're just starting to award to architects. Those architects are going to be required to stay within that budget. They're going to probably work with a CM. They're going to go through iterations. It's going to change a bunch of times at the SD phase before they hone in on exactly what this building will look like. So it's really just a number that you're going to need to stick with and design by. So you need to be, we know it's a big number. We know it hurts, but it's what the market is right now. And we're just trying to be as honest as we can at this phase.
You said the project included all the wants and needs. Taking a look at the cafeteria, so there's 2 cafeterias. Is that something that's necessary because of the size? Or could just the existing cafeteria be somewhat renovated rather than having two separate?
So the cafeterias are sized based on the population and the amount of lunch waves they have. And we did need to increase it in order to maintain the amount of lunch waves. They would have to have lunch all day long.
I was gonna say the scheduling of a school revolves around the sharing of that space.
Cafeteria.
So that's how we size cafeterias.
Yeah, but I was also looking at the outdoor learning environments. The two identical, these are all new, the two identical soccer fields, the sensory paths and walkways. While they sound nice, the greenhouse in the garden, courtyard, learning center commons, that's just an expansion of a space that you have. How much of an expansion is that? Is it double? Is it just a smaller?
It is essentially, I think, double the size of the existing media center. But how big is that exact addition? I don't have that number
No, I
exactly in
just
front of
wondered
me.
if the increase was a double of what was already.
Oh, it's
existing.
double what's existing.
It's double.
But it's also gonna be a swing space as well, right? Like there's no space built in for interventionists for EL services.
So
So that learning commons would be a media center, would also be meeting space, tutoring space, intervention space.
And it would typically be flexible, multi-purpose use, unlike libraries of today and yesterday where things are fixed and they're harder to move around. So it allows for even programming changes. So you had to add a bunch of intervention that you didn't currently have. You'd have that capability without.
That maker space. You
Yeah,
could-
exactly.
that's exactly what we have programmed in there. I'm showing a block, I get it, but it's gonna be broken up into other spaces within there.
Out of curiosity, when the buses come in, oh, I'm sorry, I just see that now. You have another entrance, because I was trying to figure out how they were gonna make that turn in front of the the tennis courts, but they're not. They're coming in directly on their own.
Right,
Okay,
yeah, that's
never
just
mind. That
pedestrian
was a
path
silly
in front of those, yeah.
For the sake of time and efficiency, I don't know how, we want the questions answered that we had in that document. I don't know how, I mean, it's pretty extensive if we're gonna be here.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if you want me to read them or.
Yeah, so you wanna.
Oh, yeah. let's-
And then we'll.
Yeah, so next steps, if you do choose to move forward with a project like this, would be to do the ed specs. This is a Word document somewhat dictated by the state that you have to put in all the requirements of the project into it, along with the square footage, and there's lots of forms to do, and the application deadline is June 30th. You do need to get your approvals, local funding, and resolutions. So I know you're talking about a possible referendum for that. And then once you guys are comfortable, you can go out to hire your architect design team to begin that schematic design process. And with that, we do recommend hiring the CM, and an owner's rep is optional. And that's going to be up to if you guys can staff that or not. And with that, thank you. And any questions?
Michelle, does the grant percentage change because we have other schools available?
Does the reimbursement percentage change? No, because you're starting to move that population here. They'll no longer reimburse you on those schools if they're not being used as a school.
Even in the interim of building it.
No, it's building it, I mean, you're saving money versus putting kids in portables, so it's a good thing that you have the kids in another school, you can save that and keep kids. I mean, you can build that one wing, it's pretty, the way the wings are laid out, you can build that while the kids are still in their building and you're not going near them. So I read this as a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to read the question, you the answer, or do you want to read both?
Okay, you read the question, I'll answer.
Okay, okay, so I copied and pasted the questions from the shared doc, so. The first one was, if this is the square footage of the building at 105,000 square foot appropriate to accommodate the enrollment and meet the OSCR standards. OSCR is Office of State School of Construction. For classroom size and support space, or can it be reduced? There are a number of elementary schools in the comparison list that are much smaller than what is proposed here. At 798 square foot, the cost goes down by 8 million for every
10,000 square foot of the building is reduced. The size of the building will have the most impact on these preliminary estimates since there are very little cost detail involved at this point.
So our response was, yes, the net square footage of the building is in line with the OSCGNR space standards. This concept is 96,414 net square feet, and the allowable is 97,030. We're using the 105,000 as a gross square foot, which includes exterior walls, which we need to do for estimating. And at this conceptual phase, a cost per square foot is typical. We don't have enough information to go beyond that at this point. So yes, we do feel like that. I know a lot of the schools on there are smaller, but their population is smaller, so it goes hand in hand.
The next one is, what kind of heating cooling plant did you envision? The district just spent over $3 million on new HVAC system for the building. The boilers, chiller pumps, and piping are inadequate to handle the expansion of this size. Will this investment go to waste?
Absolutely not. We do not want to waste that in any way. I went right to the mechanical engineer that was the lead design on it and talked to him about it. But so some of this is from him, and I have a couple bullet points because engineers tend to give you a lot. Okay. We do not intend to waste the new mechanical system. The systems should be allowed to remain under high performance building, which we have to do for these projects, as long as OSCGNR approves it. And we will need to certify that it'll exist for 20 years life expectancy. The existing boiler plant has approximately 100% redundant capacity when compared to the existing heating load. So there is extra that can be used. We may also be able to add some sections to the existing boilers to add capacity. We will need to verify with the manufacturer. The new additions and some of the renovated areas will need new equipment, and we will likely use dedicated outside air systems, DOAS, and variable refrigerant flow systems, VRF, because of the excellent efficiency that they provide. The systems will incorporate heat pump technology, so most of the heating can be handled by the heat pump during moderate cold temperatures. The existing boilers will likely have enough capacity to supplement the new DOAS and VRF for periods of extreme cold when heat pumps are not sufficient. Also, if the existing heating pipe runs are undersized for the additions, parallel pipe runs can be installed to pick up the additions. So that's as much detail as we can kind of get into at this point.
Will the proposed building be fully sprinkled? If yes, the existing and new classrooms have egress to the outside at ground level. Why would you propose a sprinkler system unless the building code now requires it for a project of this size?
So the building code does require it for any new and renovate as new educational buildings. It's a requirement. So we would have to do it. If we didn't do renovate as new, you could leave the existing building as is, but the additions would have to be.
What would be the bare minimum number of classrooms and support spaces, i.e. toilets, that we would have to add to accommodate the students from Lyman and Brewster? How much area would this require without expansion or alteration of core spaces such as the cafeteria, gym, main admin area, library, etc.?
So per enrollment projections, the district class size and the district's class size policies provided, we do need 36 classrooms. The remainder of the core spaces are typically determined by the educational programs offered and scheduling, which was the purpose of our programming meetings with the educators. So that was all defined there and brought forward. And I did include the little chart where we kind of take the class size policies and come up with a classroom quantity.
Okay, on slide 14, is that still the same slide? You state hire owner's rep is optional, but in the next bullet, you state hire CM without an optional notation as if it's required. Our district ran a much larger building project that encompassed 4 of our 6 schools 20 years ago with a clerk of the works. Why would we want a CM for this project?
We highly recommend a CM for the project of this scale. A lot has changed in 20 years and most general contractors cannot bond a project of this scale. With a CM, they come in early and provide better control over the whole process. It will ensure that this is completed on time and in budget.
And our building committee did recommend that as a something to include. The space computation worksheet on slide 9 appears to be for a smaller proposal, maybe your option 2. Why did you not show the worksheet for the concept in this presentation?
So the option does align with the space worksheet. The worksheet is looking at net square feet, which is the inside of the building. Allowable is 97,030, and the proposed concept is 96,414 net square feet. When estimating, we need to evaluate the gross square feet, so we used 105,000.
Okay, almost done. If the main entrance remains in its current location, are we better off not purchasing the grass field from St. Coleman's and should just lease the space in the parking lot, which is empty most of the day? It's only going to be used by staff and parents attending night activities. Aside from the cost of the land, which would be minimal in the whole scheme of things, site development will be expensive.
So there is an existing issue on site with only a single point of access. We are drastically increasing the population of staff, students, buses, and parent drop-off pickup so much that we need the space and it improves the safety. We need to separate the bus and vehicles. Without it, where would all this go? It would occupy a lot of the field and or new tennis and pickleball courts. The site would still have only one point of entry exit, and separating bus and vehicle would be a major challenge.
Why are we proposing to renovate as new the existing building? We would be ripping out building systems that were installed only 27 years ago. There hasn't been much, if any, change in some of these systems since then. Example, today's copper electrical wire is no different than it was used in 1996.
So we do recommend renovate as new, as the entire building can be modernized and reimbursement maximized. By the time all this moves forward, it'll be 30 years old. Windows need replacement, all finishes, ADA, accessibility, furniture, restrooms, and various program improvements. We do not need to rip out items such as electrical wire, conduit, back boxes, and some plumbing or mechanical piping, as long as we can certify that it'll last another 20 years. In projects like this, when towns do not renovate as new, much of the building remains untouched, and people only remember that they upgraded the building and will not want to come back and pay for renovations later. When taking on a project like this, it makes sense to get it all done together.
Is it possible to have a copy of your answer so that they can be put
Absolutely.
into the document, you know? Okay, I appreciate that.
I will say that the slide numbers do change. I can try to update them because we added a few.
I know that this is not nowhere close to the end of what this discussion is going to involve. We're going to have a lot more questions, meetings, reconfigurations of the project. So I'm wondering at this time if we should just thank you and just move on to our agenda, and then we will obviously get back to you at this point. And thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure. It's already 25 after. I think we'll probably. So that's a good question.
Thank you.
What should we do going forward?
That's me too.
Turn around and just maybe set a special meeting and just simply discuss this, because to discuss it now in any depth, where it's already 7:25, we have all the rest of the meeting to go. And we probably need a little more time to do some digesting. What's the pleasure of the board?
There definitely needs to be more discussion on it,
Oh, absolutely.
and not to mention what we're gonna be able to afford moving forward with what we currently have.
Right.
So it's something that I guess we're gonna have to sit with Kim and find out, I guess. I'm sure Kim already has it all. So,
I think if we're gonna make another meeting, it needs to be very soon. It needs to not be
Absolutely.
like.
Yep, absolutely. We could probably send something out tomorrow and set up another meeting. Next week.
could we incorporate this, Bob, with our building committee?
Okay, when's that meeting?
I'm not sure, but having their,
They're not-
29th.
but having their expertise would probably be beneficial.
Yeah,
We have to make a work session and invite them.
Yeah,
What's
it's a March 29th.
They're not meeting for a while.
I mean, we can certainly have a discussion and see if we can move that, but
Yeah,
I think having them and their expertise certainly helps us to make some
Yeah,
We're gonna have to buy-
make a joint meeting with the building
Right.
committee.
By meeting. Mhm.
And I'm
All right,
sorry,
we'll
when
work
is
on
that?
that.
29th, you
I
said?
think we're gonna try to
Is it,
reschedule if we can.
Is it the 29th?
Yeah.
When do we want it?
That's
Like next,
building committee? Or whenever?
I don't, like next
I don't wanna
Monday.
wait.
Well,
Monday
how about-
night.
how about I am talking?
That's a long time.
We'll figure it out.
I was thinking like next week. Yeah, that's a
Wanna try
long
and pick a
time.
date?
We might.
Yeah, but
What meetings do we have next week?
just policy.
We have policy at 4 o'clock on Wednesday.
We could do it, start at 5 and go.
I'm good with that.
If- No, I gotta check with Holly.
Does that work for you, Kim?
So we're
Next
talking
Wednesday?
March
I'll make
15th,
it work.
March 15th.
My daughter might be mad. It's her birthday.
Oh, no.
No.
How about like next Monday? She's 22.
Well, you know, you could have her come in for those, have some cake. Well, we're talking.
It just cost me a little more money.
Happy with that.
No, it's fine. No, it's important.
Okay, so we're looking at next week, the 15th, we'll get in touch with the building committee and we'll have a joint meeting right after policy. Okay. Moving forward, we have presentations and recognitions. We have a couple of high school reporters, Hayden and Christine. Are you still here?
Yeah.
They do.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'll be reporting sports and music tonight. All right. Coggachog athletics programs are winding down their winter sports season and heading into the beginning of the spring season. Students have the opportunity to participate in baseball, softball, boys and girls outdoor track, boys and girls golf, girls lacrosse, and boys and girls tennis. As designated by the CIAC, Saturday, March 18th marks the first official day for spring sports practices. New to our repertoire is our girls lacrosse collaborative team with Middletown High School. This long requested program is an exciting addition for Coggachog, which ensures greater community connections with Middletown and a diversified offering of sports. Also, we now have a club boys rugby team that will play interscholastically, but home games will be held at Peckham Park in Middlefield. Additionally, as we are ending winter sports, our girls basketball team is still competing in the postseason. The boys basketball team competed in the first round of states and a tough loss against Gober on Monday, but the final score was very close. The team was ranked 7th in the Shoreline Conference and had celebrated recent wins against East Windsor and Old Lyme. The girls are currently still in the state rounds and are ranked 4th in the Shoreline and have celebrated many recent wins against Old Lyme, Ansonia, and Oxford. Also, Anthony DeFilio was named as new head coach of the collaborative football program for Coggachog, East Hampton, and Nathan Hillray. We will be honoring the winter season with our winter sports banquet on Wednesday, March 15th. A 5 p.m. start will contain individual team sessions and recaps with the main ceremony lasting from 6 to 7 p.m. in the CRHS auditorium. Each team will give a highlight of their sports season and award notable student athletes. The Benchwarmers Booster Club will present the final awards of the season for the MVP of each team. Finally, the Benchwarmers have also announced their senior athletic scholarships for Coggachog's graduating seniors. 4 separate scholarships were announced with different criteria and awards, including the Athlete of the Year award, as well as a new Judy Camp Memorial Award, which is for the student athlete who will be continuing their education and pursuing education as their field of study. Now on to music. Our musical Matilda will be Yep.
Girls are up 35-26 at the end of the third quarter.
I hope he didn't just.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
35-28 at the end of the. All right,
Our musical Matilda will open in just a month. There are over 70 students from Coggachog and Strong involved in the cast, crew, and pit orchestra who gather for rehearsals after school to learn choreography, practice music, and create sets to bring the musical to life. We hope to see you in the audience at 7 p.m. on March 30th, 31st, and April 1st. Once again, sorry. For Pep Band, we honored all Pep Band seniors at the boys basketball senior night game in February. And on Monday, the Pep Band will play at the Middletown and Coggachog Unified Sports basketball game during advisory. And lastly, last Wednesday, we held our district band concert with over 250 students. We had a guest conductor, Dr. Andrew Pease, who is a professor at Harvard College in New York. He graduated from CRHS in 1997 and was very excited to come back and conduct all of our bands he once played in. He closed the concert with a 5th grade band getting to join the CRHS band on stage, and all 5th through 12th graders perform the Army Caisson song together. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, in terms of student life, we have a number of events. So Okay, students are continuing to enjoy monthly visits with the therapy dogs, which is provided for through our monthly partnership with the MYFS. On February 22nd, 11 students returned from a week-long trip to Costa Rica. They participated in a zip line through the cloud forest. They had a cooking lesson on a local traditional Costa Rican dish. They visited a local school. They had an aerial tram through a rainforest and a hike of the Arenal Volcano National Park, as well as many other interesting and informative activities. On March 1st, 12 members of the Coggins chapter of DECA joined 800 high school business, finance, hospitality, and marketing students at the annual Association Career Development Conference. 3 students were top place finishers and will advance to the international level competition in Florida next month. Coggins DECA was also recognized for its successful completion of the chapter and membership campaigns as the only school in our state to complete both successfully. And Mr. Donaker was recognized for 10 years of service as a DECA advisor. Over 20 students are hard at work preparing for the robotics competition that will run this Friday through Sunday in Waterbury. It is a district level competition in which they will compete with about 40 other teams. DECA will host their 8th annual Mr. Coggins next Friday, March 17th at 7 p.m. In the auditorium, tickets will be $7 at the door if you'd like to attend. On March 22nd, our juniors will take the SAT, and on March 24th, the sophomore class will host a neon-themed semi-formal. And finally, Coggins High School is proud to announce that our 2023 valedictorian is Jenna DePonte, and our salutatorian is Catherine Taylor.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Have you decided at the college?
Bob always asks that question. Okay, moving on, public comment. Is there anyone here in person who would like to make a public comment referring to items on the agenda?
Hello, my name is Dalton Bates, and I am a senior on one of the 2 football captains of the CRHS Blue Devils 2022-23 season.
My name is Tyler Sagan. I'm the other captain this season.
We are here tonight to thank both Principal Stone and our athletic director, Mr. Petronio, for their efforts to include student and player input into the hiring process for the new football coach.
With Mr. Petronio, we were able to hold meetings with the current players to see what they wanted in a new head coach. And with the findings, we were able to create some questions that would be asking the candidates in the interviews.
We both very much appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the interview panel and part of the legacy of the Blue Devils football team. We're also very pleased with the selection of Coach D and only wish that we one more year of playing because we know it's going to be a fun and successful season next year under him.
Hi, my name is Alan and I'm with Bradford, and we are here presenting the current players and future of Coggins football. I'd like to recognize Mr. Petronio and Mrs. Stone for taking our feedback and comments into consideration on making the decision of our new head coach.
We are so happy to have Coach D as our new head coach, and we are all actively working as a team in the weight room, and the team spirit has also gone up with him being hired.
Hi, I'm Molly Clark. I'm the president of the Coggins Football Club, and I was an active participant as well on the hiring committee for the new head coach. I'm speaking on behalf of the board and the parents of the current and future players. I have 5 years left as a football mom in this program. We are very thrilled to have Anthony DeFilio as our new head coach for our football program. We want to thank Mr. Petronio, Mrs. Stone for including us in the process and recognizing the strong relationships that Coach D has with the players and the cheerleaders and the value he brings to the table. In addition to bringing back fun to the program, the selection of Coach D sends a clear message to the players that they are valued, as well as bringing much needed stability to the program. We look forward to partnering with Coach D on the much needed recruitment in the other towns, as well as making this our best season ever.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yep.
Hi, my name is Karen Buckley. I am also a football mom, but I'm not here to talk about football tonight. So I am a resident of Durham. I have 4 boys, 3 who graduated from Coggins, with 1 who's a senior, you heard from just a few minutes ago. I've been an active and involved parent I've worked with PTAs, parent groups, booster clubs, COPs, and together we have fundraised to fill the void that for items that cannot be and have not been included in the RSD13 budget. I have been fundraising and helping with community services projects and general fundraising in the district for over 20 years. I helped fund cultural arts programming at Brewster Corner Memorial. I led the Brewster Playground Project, both fundraising and the build itself. I ran after-school programming at Memorial School, and most recently I've assisted COPs, sports booster programs, and the Coggin-Chog Football Club. In all total, when I look at all the fundraising activities I was involved in, I've helped raise over $100,000 for this district and kids. That's a lot. In my professional life, I actually track, read, and write legislation and regulations and policies. And so I bring to the table expertise in both the process for bringing in community input, but also the reading of proposed policies and regulations, and how what is often written may not be what the intent is. So I'm here tonight. I want to thank the superintendent for talking with me today. And I wanted to, I originally came to ask for 2 requests. So the first you did tonight by tabling things. Thank you very much to allow for input of those who actually do the fundraising in the district. But the second is actually to speak to some of the issues that were brought up about lack of feedback and involvement in the process. And I'd like to say to you that it's almost impossible to access the draft policies. In fact, when I first requested them, I was told I could not have access to them until after they were passed. That was rectified, and I'm thankful that the superintendent did that. But when I went back and looked at the minutes from the policy committee for the last year, there's no way for us to actually review and look at what the language would actually be proposed. In the case of the fundraising proposal, it said that Shipman and Goodman or Shipman would actually recommend modernizing the proposal. There was no way to look at the language. There was no way to comment on it. And I think that that's a problem within your system. I think the policy should be available as either linked to your agenda or available on your website for comment. That's what happens in the legislature. That's what happens in state agencies when you propose changes. They're available for comment. And that way, if folks like me who work full-time can't get to your 4 o'clock meeting, I have an opportunity to actually weigh in and write to you. So my 2 requests were to postpone the reading, and the second is to make it possible for access to those policies. I would have asked for access to all of those policies, but I thought that was too cumbersome of a request for central office. So I only focused on the 2 policies that I thought might be most important to us. I did want to just comment on one other thing. The district counts community service projects as fundraisers. So if you want to do a collection for the soup kitchen, you have to register it as a fundraiser. And the reason behind that, I think, is because the district wants to take track of all of the revenue and or items that are or assets that are given to the district and how they're handled, which is appropriate. Except if you now require a parent to sign a form in order to make a donation of a canned good or diapers for the diaper drive, I think you are basically stopping community service projects. And we know this because the football club tried to do this in the fall, and we had difficulty getting the paperwork processed. So we modified our collection to be off district. And that is a shame because we want to instill in our students active community service, and the paperwork shouldn't get in the way. So we appreciate the opportunity to actually have those conversations and to talk about how the process should work. Fundraising is hard right now as it is. Let's not make it more difficult. I think for the 20 years I've worked in this process, and I've had this conversation with Deb Stone in each setting she's worked, it shouldn't be hard for us to help you do the work you need to do and help learners. And I appreciate your opportunity, the opportunity to have that conversation in a thoughtful way, because I think that's what all of us want to do. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Anyone else? Okay, how about remote? Is there anyone remote? Who's got their hand up?
You see that has their hand up?
No.
Not for this person.
Okay. Hearing no remote public comment requests, we're gonna move on to item number 7, approval of minutes. We have 2 minutes here, a regular meeting and a work session. The regular meeting is February 8th, the work session is February 22nd. Are there any corrections or changes that anyone is contemplating, or are they okay?
Not for these people.
Okay, so then if they're okay, I believe we don't need a motion to approve them because they will stay as is. Okay, item number 8, we're gonna move to a superintendent's report.
Thank you. You may have noticed when you arrived this evening, there's some things at your, like that, like a plant and a gift bag. This is Board Member Appreciation Month, and we wanted to let you all know how much we appreciate what you all do as board members. I've said this many times, but I'll repeat it. I don't know why any of you do this. You don't get paid. It's thankless. A lot of people get upset with you no matter what decisions we make. But if you didn't,
But we get it raised every year.
but if, oh, that's right, that's true. But if you didn't do it, we couldn't serve the children that we serve in the community. So small token of our appreciation as a district for what you all do there.
If you don't mind,
yeah.
and a special thank you to Meg. who
Yes.
Puts
yes.
all this together and,
Yes.
Sending a thank you to hers.
Had I been in
Good luck.
charge of this, you would not have gotten things like this. Maybe we got a gift card or something. I don't know. The other thing I wanted to mention is last Thursday, as many of you know, was Read Across America Day. And that was happening in our schools. I know that many of you were also able to get out into the schools, and I want to thank those of you that could. I know some of you, your work schedules don't allow that, but I think it's really neat, especially not too far off of COVID and even masking requirements, that we're kind of back in the saddle in doing these things. I want to give a special shout out to Deb Mariani, one of our coaches, who did a great job organizing all of us who said we wanted to do it. And since I have this platform, I want to give a special thank you to the kindergartners in Mrs. Kaczynski's class at Brewster, who I got to read Pete the Cat Goes to the Beach. First time I'd read that book, and it was really good. They seem to enjoy it. Also, maybe you all are familiar with this. My kids are older, so I don't know any of these titles. The Day the Crayons Quit, I was able to read to Mrs. Polanski's 3rd grade class at Lyman. And last but not least, A Computer Called Catherine, How Katherine Johnson Helped Put America on the Moon. This is if you saw the movie Hidden Figures, it's kind of a condensed version, more age appropriate. That was for Mrs. McKay's 5th grade class in Memorial School. And I say that because later on in our agenda, the board's going to be considering a really important decision around a literacy program. And reading is so important, and it's important to instill not just the ability to read, but I think the joy to read. And so again, anything that we can all do collectively in our homes, in our schools, in our community to instill that joy, especially when younger and younger kids have access to these. And I'm not saying they can't read on them, but that's usually not what they're doing. So again, thank you to Deb and everyone else that put all that together. It was a great day in our schools. That's all I have. Thank you.
So is it possible to, I know that some of the pictures that were taken in the schools were posted in the newsletters, but if there's a slideshow that could be put together of all of them, it'd be really neat for the district just to see.
Yeah, we can try. We're also in the process, I don't know the exact date, of putting our district snapshot together. We're planning to feature a lot of those photos there, but you just want like all the pictures?
Well, no, I just like a presentation or something to get it up. That would be, okay. It was probably one of the greatest days. Actually, I took my 7th grader out for the day, and he came with me to Brewster, and then we went to Lyman.
Yeah.
And he got to read to both of them, and it was a great day.
I did catch a quick clip on the news of WFSB broadcast from John Lyman.
Yeah.
Not to put a damper on things, but I do trust we have some sort of a release form because.
Oh, of course. Yes.
I know Miss Polanski's
damper.
husband is an editor at WFSB, so there's some connection there. That's good. And it's good for the district, things of that sort.
They must have gotten there after I left. 'Cause I was at John Lyman. At 9.
They were there early, yeah. You just
They were there really early. Oh, yeah. Well, 9:15 was early enough for me. Okay, moving on, staff report, Director of Finance, Kim?
Yes, thank you. So after closing out the month of February, our general fund stands at 62% expended and 65% of our revenue has been received. MTA is at 40% expended and 41% received. The general fund budget for the 22-23 year is running very close to be fully expended. I'm not anticipating any surplus whatsoever at the end of this year. Couple reasons for that being some unanticipated expenses that we didn't budget for, but we are required to meet. And also the vacancy factor at 96.5, sometimes you make out okay, and sometimes you don't. It all depends on staff leaves and turnover and whatnot. And this year we haven't had a lot of that. So we will not go over budget, but we also will not go, have any kind of surplus to help us in future years. Just an update on the free lunch. The state of Connecticut is helping fund through the COVID grant, still free lunch from March 1st to the last day of school for all students. There is legislation I spoke to before that's in a House bill that would extend that for indefinitely, I guess, but at the expenditure of the local municipality. They do have grants that they were gonna, talked about giving to different towns, but those would probably be the higher need towns. Again, I just want to put this on your radar. I've had no, I don't know where it stands right now, but I've estimated it costs $355,000. Now, if that becomes, and we just need to, I don't think we're going to know about this before we pass the budget, but, and I would hope there would be some sort of relief because then that would be 1% of our budget. So that is not included in that. I went to a school security symposium with a couple other administrators last week, and it was absolutely phenomenal. We loved it. We learned a lot of stuff. And with that, I'm just going to say that there's a security grant with the state of Connecticut that extended the deadline to April 28th. And, we can talk about, I know we had Mutual Link or we had other kind of presentations on that. And, we have a 52% reimbursement rate. So, if we're interested in that, I need to know that so that I can apply for that grant. That's exactly the kind of stuff that grant is looking for you to do. So I don't think that would be, ineligible at all. And then the last thing I have is that HVAC grant for the memorial mechanicals. There's COVID money for HVAC systems that we applied for. I hear that it's all projects that have been deemed eligible have been identified, and they're awaiting the commissioner's approval. So hopefully, I'm hoping we put in for $2 million. We could get anywhere up to that, or we could get nothing. So when I find out, I'll let you know. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Kim. Under new business, part A is a vote to reallocate the culvert grant funds to the Picket Lane paving project.
Yep, that's good. So part of the culvert, we had put in the $6.9 million bonding package, and before we knew that we could get a grant for it. So we got a grant for up to 50% of the total amount, which we had put in. So that was about $446,000. But or less, whatever it came into. And I think we did not pay as much as that. It was probably going to be closer to a reimbursement rate of about $330,000 to $350,000. And that has been approved. It's just waiting to payment. So part of that, and that's an assumption in this 23-24 budget proposal, is that money that we get back from that culvert grant remains in the bonding, the 6.9 million bonding, and then can be used to pay Picket Lane with what was proposed, another $300,000 to be put in the budget. But what we need to do is to have a board vote that you all agree with. That's how we'll use the bonding money. I don't have a specific amount. So what I think the motion will be that whatever the proceeds are from that grant will be put towards the Picket Lane paving.
I'd like to make a motion that we take any grant money that's returned to put into the remaining Picket Lane project.
I'll second. So made by Bob, seconded by Lindsay. Any discussion?
You have the prices for the proposed picket lane,
Yes, we got 2 bids in Friday.
and they range from,
They're within budget. So we were expecting 700,000 or lower, somewhere around there, and they're there. We're reviewing them still for completeness and appropriateness, but yeah. It's promising.
Other than 1.7.
Yeah, that's for sure. Awesome. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passed. The next item under new business is a discussion on school choice. I'm not sure if anyone wants to start that discussion. No, Amanda's not here. I don't remember about it. Do you think we should table it till another meeting?
Hi.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I had to leave to go pick up my daughter, but I can definitely, speak on this because I did ask to have this put on the agenda. It's something that Maura and I have both been bringing up. And I just would like to see that we start somewhere with the school choice discussion. I think that it needs to be changed. There shouldn't be a difference between the 2 schools, which we have pointed out that there is. So that's where I'd like to start the discussion. We need to begin somewhere.
I'm here also too. Thank you for starting the conversation. Amanda. I too
Maura, we can't hear you. You're
agree
cutting out.
with what Amanda said. I think. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep, it's
Yep.
better.
Yep, go ahead.
All right. If you can't hear me, I'll have to call back. But my personal experience as an employee of the district is it puts an absolute unnecessary competition between the 2 schools. And I do believe that if we
Maura, do you
we
want to
are
turn your mic off?
saying
Right.
that there is no difference in the 2 programs that are being offered at the schools at this
Maura, I think you have to call back. We're really losing your train of thought. You're breaking up and disappearing. Looking up at the ceiling.
So I think what Maura was trying to say is that it creates unnecessary competition between the 2 schools when we say that there's no difference in the programming. We need to know that there's absolutely no difference. There should not be a decision to be made on which school children are going to based on program, because we're one track now.
Sorry, and can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I don't know if you heard also what I had said is exactly what Amanda said. I think that I don't even understand what people are choosing from right now. If there is no difference between the 2 schools or so we're told, I'm not really sure what the choice is, why we are even offering a choice, other than just the actual physical building or location of towns at this point. And then I had my first point was just speaking as a past employee, and I can sympathize with the employees of the town that work in Brewster and Lyman. It just causes such an unnecessary competition. I remember the days of where we actually let parents walk through the building, and we had to all, like everybody had to show exactly what we're doing in the 2 schools, and then the parents would critique both schools, and the whole thing just has such a negative feel to me, of competition between 2 programs, 2 excellent schools, 2 excellent groups of teachers, that I was shocked to hear that we were even still doing that this year.
If I can just throw out my thoughts first, I think this is certainly a conversation that we can have. I don't think it makes sense to make any changes this year because it's already been in the works. So I would like to recommend that we continue this discussion at another meeting where we can really explore it more, and because we certainly would have time. Because I believe, information doesn't go out till what, April for the schools, to sign up? April?
It's already going on.
No,
My-
it's
my-
this year, but I'm
yes.
talking about next year. So it doesn't go out till February, I would think, February, March. So I think we have time to bring this up again.
Can I ask a question? I don't know if you would have this. So
I just would say that I think as
Okay,
Oh,
please.
okay.
Yeah.
So I just have a question. If we eliminated school choice, how much would that save us on transportation costs if students were just going to the town where they
So
live?
I did do that study a while ago and we determined it would be about 1 or 2 buses. It wouldn't be a significant, but it would be.
come on, baby.
And then can we also have?
Settle down now.
Okay. Can we have a list of the things that are going on that are different at the two schools?
That was
so
gonna
that
be
we
my
can
question.
have like an honest
Yeah.
discussion about.
And if there is in fact something going on, why isn't it being
Well, I can
addressed?
think of one thing already they sent out in the parent squares. I mean, Lyman has the opportunity for learners starting at grade 2 to participate and lead their parent teacher conferences. I don't see anything about that from Brewster starting in grade 2. I know it would only be grade 2 or at Memorial, and I don't have any communication from parents that leads me to believe that happens at other schools. But if it's the same program, we're doing the same things.
Yeah,
Should
so
we
I,
be-
what I would say to that is, I think if we're gonna have a discussion in the future, I'd want to bring the administration from the two schools in, because I don't want to speak
Yeah, no.
out of place. I would say, even if you have the same curriculum and the same programming, no two schools are identical. And I don't think we would want them to be. You have different staffs, you have different administration, you have different parent organizations. And I don't think that's what you all are saying. I think you're saying when there's a choice and there's a history of having two different programs, that can create some tension. I think, I agree with Lucy. I think this year is already in motion. And I think there are probably many things that the board would want to consider about the implications of changing the practice. If in fact, we're about to hopefully make a configuration change, and my thought would be to time all of this once, I'm gonna say when, not if, when we make a decision on configuration changes, that be made first and then decide what does the transition plan look like, because any districts I've worked in before have been larger and everyone went to school based on where they lived. That's how larger districts typically operate. And maybe you could ask to go to another school if you drove your kid and there was room. But anytime a boundary line was changed, and anytime you took what had been a choice and made it not a choice, it upset a lot of people. And so I don't want to see you all or us upset people until we actually know exactly how we're going to do it. And even like, what is it going to save? And is it worth it? Even like, how are we drawing these lines? Is it that all of Middlefield goes to Lyman, all of Durham goes to Brewster? And furthermore, I would say, as long as it's pre-K to 2 and K to 4,
Right.
it's different.
It is different.
So, and I would say for some families, and again, I'd want to hear this from Tom and Deb and others that would know, that's probably one of the factors, along with location, along with, I'm seeing a head nod in the crowd out there, along with maybe siblings, if your siblings went to that school. So I think there are other reasons other than just the programming.
But with that said though, Doug, we've had years, even before you were here, where parents with kids coming up to kindergarten made decisions based on what was presumed to be a reconfiguration that was going to be happening. So what I think a lot of parents are feeling is that decisions that they've made that were said that, you know, this is going to be a K through 2, or both schools will be a K through 2, or we're going to make one K through 5, still not happening. But and my question would be like, what are people making? What are the decisions other than, yes, there's a K through 4 still and a K through 2, which obviously is glaringly not the same. But I mean, what's the information that's being given to parents for both schools? What are the presentations that are being given?
Yeah, that information, I know that Tom and Deb have worked as hard as they can to make consistent. And it is very consistent. That still doesn't mean that, I mean, to your point, I don't think we ask people why. And I'm not sure that we would want to. I think the bottom line is we have been giving them a choice. And I think if we stop, eventually they'll be okay with that because that'll just be our new normal. I was only suggesting that the transition from what we're doing, giving people a choice to not giving people a choice may upset some people, and that still doesn't mean we don't do it. I just wanted to throw that out there. And also the idea of, I think our biggest issue still is, and you even just mentioned it more, like, when can we tell people what the long-term configurations at all the schools are going to look like, whether we're giving them a choice or not? I think that's a little bit unsettling. If Tom were here, I think he would tell you, and he'll tell me tomorrow if I say this incorrectly, but ever since it was talked about the potential of Lyman closing, he feels like it has impacted fewer people choosing Lyman for kindergarten because they didn't necessarily want to have their kid at kindergarten if the next year the school might close. And
Exactly.
I kind of get that. But then he also has said, because it's been on the table for so long, it hasn't happened. Now there's just a lot of apathy about, I wonder if anything is ever going to change.
Right. But in the meantime, and I totally agree with you. I think in the meantime, the parents that made decisions 1 or 2 years ago are feeling deflated and wondering the same thing. Like, when is this going to happen? So we all know, like, this is the big question, big elephant in the room. But, you know, there are people who made decisions to go to Lyman based on a K-4 and their child may not be staying there for the K-4 now, or vice versa. They chose Brewster because Lyman was supposed to be closing, and now Lyman's not closing. So there's just a lot of miscommunication, and I think a lot of still division that I think we need to work a lot more on in the future.
And I would like to see this conversation continue at another meeting. And also the communication committee is wide open to kind of look at some of these issues as well and see what they feel might be a way to communicate better, or some different ways to communicate. So I think I'm gonna
before you move on, I have something else I'd like to say, Lucy.
Okay, go ahead.
While we do have school choice, obviously I assume there's a lot of families who do choose Lyman because they do not have to make as many changes as the Brewster kids have to make. But with Brewster housing our special needs pre-K children, they're not really given a choice to actually go to Lyman should they want to and enjoy 4 years in one location like some of the other kids. So I want everyone to like really think about that as well. There might be siblings who want to be in the same school together, and they don't have that opportunity currently because Brewster only houses the pre-K and Lyman doesn't.
And I don't, to your point, Amanda, we'll have to get information. Jen's not here tonight about whether that's true or not. I think whether they have the choice or not, I think once they're already established at the school, my sense is most of them are probably choosing.
I think that's what Amanda means. That means that they cannot. I
But
think
they're not getting the choice, is what I'm saying. If once they go to pre-K at Brewster, they're stuck there unless they, want to move to the other school.
Right. That's
What-
it.
it's a natural progression from the
Absolutely.
pre-K.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, like at your end of year PPT meeting, we're basically planning on you remaining at Brewster.
Yeah.
You've been continuing on with your team that you've established.
Well, and we wouldn't suggest moving kids. I don't think that would be good educationally for them.
Yeah, and I think that's what Amanda's saying, that then they're basically paved the way for Brewster.
No, I think that's exactly right.
And with regard to the reconfiguration, can't say we haven't been trying, because we've been trying to do this for quite a few years. And the bottom line is, it's not our decision to make, it's the community's, our community decisions to make. And if things keep getting voted down, we're not going to have any changes. Things are going to stay as they are.
I think it's important too, if we look at, we can have this discussion, but even if we're gonna come back and want more information, it'd be nice to know, different factors. What would it mean to move kindergarten and only, maybe only give school choice for just kindergarten? We're gonna only have kindergarten, say at Brewster. And we phase out kindergarten in the anticipation of Lyman closing. What are the implications on that? Where would those children go? Or do we draw a division between the two lines? Like Doug said, it's hard to make that line, but is that possible? So they're questions we don't know, that I think that it'd be good for us to get that information, and we can bring it back to a next discussion on it.
Right.
But I do think they have a really
Certainly
valid
submit that,
point that,
Put it
we
in
don't have
writing,
the
so
information to have
there.
the concrete discussions, and it's frustrating, and we need to continue to have that, and not for an extended period of time, to leave it in between now and then.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I talked about maybe upsetting people. I don't know that that's true. If you, what I have felt like in any decisions like this when I've been involved, the more time you can give people. So if we told them this summer that it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And told them exactly where their child was going to go, and there were exemptions for siblings, and you don't want to break up families and things. If we had all that worked out, I think that it might upset people, but at least they would be able to have like a whole year to plan for that. And so that's why I think doing it sooner versus later. But I would still say I'd love to have the configuration thing kind of in our mind first, because I think otherwise we could make one decision on this and then have to reverse on it based on where the configuration might go. And to Lucy's point, we need the voters to ultimately
Right.
help us on most of those.
Yeah, and I think it does too, working congruently with this topic along with the configuration is going to be important. So, we don't necessarily have to have everything all at once in order to keep moving forward with
Agreed.
both, I think.
Agreed.
Back in the day, here I go again. Where students went in their elementary years was truly entirely based 100% on best use of the building. It was, okay, you're gonna go to center school, our community center, you're gonna go to John Lyman. Yes, it was still town specific at that point, but it was just about equity as far as class sizes. That was the entire way. Yes, we did switch back and forth and it was okay. Didn't faze me whatsoever, but that was a long time ago.
Okay, moving on, the next discussion is discussion on food in the schools. I'm gonna put that out there as well.
So this is, it's a topic that, I asked Lucy to put on the agenda for us just to talk about. And there's some history back and forth, and I know you guys saw the email from Doug trying to explain where the students kind of left the elementary schools. A lot of us have questions whether it had to do with allergies or had to do with, different reasons. My point in the discussion is it seems that the no food or especially around like celebrations and teachers working with different foods within the elementary schools, it seems to be tied to, correct me, the healthy choices. Correct?
Yeah, there's a wellness policy that at present gives discretion to each principal of how much or how little of this they're going to allow. And my understanding is in COVID, it just went away. That discretion was gone, and it hasn't really come back in a significant way. And I think that's where the discussion came from. Like,
Correct.
how should that be the principal's decision? Does the board want to set some parameters or policies around this? But I happen to believe that this is an issue even before COVID. And in my experience, different schools and different districts have handled it differently. And for a lot of different reasons, I think there is a lot of positives from having food in school, celebrations and everything else. And then there is you got the allergy issue, you've got the wellness, childhood obesity issue of if we have cupcakes every day, because it seems like it's somebody's birthday just about all the time, and even the time for office staff and teachers to have to kind of do that. So I've seen everything in my experience from no food to kind of the wild west, and then everything kind of in between. I've been some schools who have said, like, we'll celebrate birthdays each month. So whoever has a September birthday, for example, all the parents of kids who have September birthdays, and of course they have to find out who's on the gluten-free list and who's on the peanut-free and all of that. And our principals have to manage all that along with our staff. So I think it's a balancing act. And I think, with this being on the agenda, I think it's important, whether we do it tonight or through policy committee or somewhere else, to give our schools some direction if the board doesn't like the current direction. I think that's fair, and our principals are aware of that.
And I think what it does is I've talked to a few people in the community, and when we talk about taking food and kind of putting the stigma that it's not something that we need be having in the classroom. We set a stigma that food's not a good thing. You know, at the elementary school levels, kids, you know, if kids are going out to parties, they're going out in the public. You want kids to be able to be exposed to things and explain to children how exactly this can happen. If we're looking at food within these classrooms, we should be putting a policy in place to allow this to happen. If we're doing it because of allergies, we need to be teaching these kids, just like we do with other things within their friends and these relationships, that allergies are something that are very serious, that we can educate on those. We educate kids in being sympathetic to disabilities, to gender, to all this. Why are we not doing that with allergies? Why are we taking kids and just saying, we're going to keep food completely segregated because of allergies? Why are we not just educating and safeguarding while still allowing food within our schools?
I think Doug makes a good point. I think this is probably something that should go to policy, because that's where.
Well, that
you know,
seems to be the only
so
path,
let's start
because
with
from
that.
what Doug told me, that it is a building policy currently, so there's no policy in
We can
place.
take a look at it.
So when the foods left the elementary schools, there was no policy, and it does seem to be there's confusion on whether this is a board policy or building policy. So now we have the confusion cleared up. It is not a board policy.
Yeah, and
It is a
yeah, and let me say
building
this too, to
policy.
that point. I think if the board feels very strongly about this, the principals would hear that and understand, because although the policy doesn't currently restrict, it also doesn't, I mean, it also doesn't mandate, and so it currently is within there, and it can be situational. My observation just from being here is there is food in the classroom right now, snack time and things like that. It's just the outside food coming in is what currently doesn't seem to be happening. And I don't even know if it's just at the elementary level or at the secondary level, or you know how
So we're
that
not clear where that's happening,
in terms of
the buildings.
well, I don't know. Do you guys allow outside food? I'll just put you on the spot since you're here.
Can I DoorDash my lunch? When they order Uber Eats, we do not let them take it down to their wherever they ordered it from. So they don't typically bring in cupcakes and things like that.
And is they the adults or are they the children?
Uber Eats from the adults, I let them have.
Okay.
No, they don't order it. And I can speak to the memorial piece only as well. One of the other things that Doug was trying to mention is the inequity in classrooms, depending on I'll use the word party, because that's what it used to be. So you'd have one very involved classroom with very involved parents, and one classroom that didn't have quite the same level of involvement. And then if you had a Halloween party, there might be inequity. So the outside, I agree, the outside food has gone away at the elementary levels. It went away with COVID as far as big parties, but kids, if they have a movie day or something like that, they were still allowed to bring in popcorn and bring in their snack and bring in their drink. So we didn't go away from them having a special occasion. We just went away from having to check food lists and getting it cleared by the nurse. And if it was cooked in the kitchen of someone's home, if they couldn't have it, and then that kid would have a special snack in the nurse's office because they weren't sure if it had red dye in it. And it's not, there was eggplant. I had eggplant as an allergy, and not a lot of cupcakes around eggplant. I get that. But, you just don't know. And so it becomes cumbersome. Sorry, you asked for my opinion. I also think there's two other things. One is if you've ever been to school when someone brings in something and every 7-year-old gets food poisoning, it is a fun afternoon. But the other one is to think about the mindset that those of us who struggle with girth, that you can celebrate without food, right? And we should learn as human beings how to celebrate and to self-soothe without food. I'm not saying don't have food, because clearly I don't subscribe to that. But I do think that that's another thing to consider, is that cupcakes aren't the only way to celebrate. You celebrate in community. So
I think that's a good idea.
And I think too, it's just not celebrations. I think it's opening teachers up to be able to bring in things for the kids, or have those projects where they are bringing in items to cook through. And again, maybe that's something that is happening that I don't know, but I think I would like to send it to policy in order to really find out the information we need. And then if the policy does need to be put in place, we can.
Can I just speak up for a second too? Sorry, I know I can't raise my hand or anything, but the policy, the policy, I'm not sure when it changed within the schools, but my fourth grader now, when she was in kindergarten, I was the room mom for kindergarten, and we brought in outside food for like Halloween or Christmas. It was totally okay. And my understanding of the policy 5135 was that it's more about the education surrounding nutrition and setting healthy standards for the school. Like the school provided lunch, not outside food. And I think, Doug, you agreed with my interpretation of that. I don't think it's very fair for us to say that children should not be allowed to bring in outside food for celebrations when our PTOs provide outside food for celebrations for the teachers.
They're adults.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but
I'm sorry.
kids can still celebrate as well. If we're not going to allow any outside food, it should be across the board. I don't think that it should be fair for some children to, be told, no, I'm sorry, you can't bring that in because of whatever reason, when there's not an actual policy stating that they cannot. So it definitely should go back to policy and have it discussed there.
Right, and let's end the discussion at this point, because it's gonna go to policy and we can pick it up there.
Okay, well, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in, so.
Thank you. I'm looking up at you. I know you're.
Can I make a public service announcement?
No, basketball.
Oh, I
Deb,
can do it.
you get the honors.
The girls won their game,
Yes.
45-41.
Wow.
Playing, I believe, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, Friday night, but at a neutral site. We don't
I think
know
it's
where yet.
Monday.
I think it was Monday.
It said the
Monday.
13th on the CIAC.
Okay.
Yeah, it says site to be
Neutral site,
determined.
Once you get to, this will be the.
Semifinals.
Taking on #1 seed in Stanford, I believe.
They went tonight. There's one. Yeah,
They've already played them twice. We won't talk about
We
it.
won't talk about that.
they're done job.
But then some of
It'll be
these
a great
games
game.
become real nail
And the
biters.
score was
45-41.
came back on us a little bit since your announcement at the end of the third quarter.
So they're only up 7.
I know we've been going for a little while. Does anyone want to take like a 5-minute break? Speaking of food,
Yes, please.
just, for whatever. All right, 5 minutes. We'll be back at 25 after.
The hours. My man.
It's like seamless.
You have a long meeting the other night. I don't know, I go second.
We're gonna reconvene our meeting. Let me know when we're all set. Oh, because I usually start talking and then he tells me I'm recording. Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 11A. The second read and vote to approve. I got a question if we're gonna be voting on each of these individually. And then I realized that we actually have to read them all and then vote on them all individually. Isn't that the way it goes, Bob?
Yeah, but we don't actually have to read them per se. Yeah, I mean, they're
I
in
think
the
you can
file.
adopt them all as a batch.
Yeah, I know.
No, unless there's
I'm
a
only-
change.
Oh, okay. I thought you.
Not even, that's not even.
Everybody else.
Well, Lucy. When I got let it go back wild,
I'm sorry.
can start reading.
Enjoy.
I think if you can vote for them all at once, but unless there's a problem with each one, we can stop.
With any of them, right?
Right. The first one was on the list is equity policy. We decided that Linda's gonna talk about that when she got on the committee. And so we haven't taken no action on the equity policy.
Other than to assign it a number, I believe. Is that correct?
We didn't assign it a number yet. We'll probably
I
put
see a
it in
number
the
on here.
6,000 series.
Which means we end up revisiting it, right?
Right, you're right. That is correct.
I am down with that.
The next one is,
Do we have to assign the number in order to approve it?
I'm not sure if Meg is ready to number these, but she put a number of 6523 on it. But
That was our
So-
proposed number change, yeah.
That's.
no,
That's the old.
six.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
think
Okay,
maybe,
we'll get on the
maybe
right
if we
page.
just say, we're gonna approve them stating they're going to the series that they're going, and then Meg can add the number as that.
Yes, and again, this is the board's purview, but I don't know that you even have to revisit these again tonight if people are okay with them, unless they had questions, since you went through them at first read, but that's the
Right.
board's pleasure on that.
Yeah, if we can do that, that's what I'd like to
Up to
do.
you.
I'm good.
I am
As long as you're
so
okay,
cool with
go
that.
ahead.
And remember, all of them have the opportunity to attend a policy,
The only thing I would
not
like to
just
say,
those on the committee.
there's another batch I want to recognize, even though we did it on the agenda, that we are not discussing G.
G,
I know.
G and L, all right. So we basically need a motion to approve the policies under 11A1, A through F, and then H through N, and then P and Q.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, motion,
I'll make the motion.
Bob, second,
I'll second it.
John. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I think, according to, Ms. Buckley, that her suggestion as to how do we get the drafts available online is a good suggestion. And so
I agree.
for Meg, I'll have to figure out how to do that. As we go through, it's good to be able to public to view the draft changes.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, and any, all in favor, all opposed? Abstentions? Good, it's approved. Item, A2, the first read. We're not gonna do those, that's right, we move those to the next one.
Delay that.
Okay, item number B, Student Achievement Committee meeting of March 2nd and a possible vote on the literacy program.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is really hard to encompass all in, I think, even if I wrote down all my notes from that night, I don't think we can adequately encompass this student achievement meeting. It was a wonderful meeting with a lot of input, a lot of us were on the meeting as well. We can first, we can go through, if we want to go through the literacy program first, but I think what's good to say on this one is, we did this one on Google Meet because that was the day that we had to reschedule because of school canceling. And I would ask that every one of us go back and review that when it's available and watch it, because there was a lot of content in there that was explained, and a lot of questions too that are going to come to us for our next meeting. In regards to the literacy program, it's been glaring that this program is what the teachers are asking for. They have extensively researched this. They have sent staff members to Guilford. They've gone through just about everything we could possibly ask on this program. And when it comes down to it, without this program, the teachers can't do their job. And I think that we need to really just honor their wishes. And it was something I think overall we agreed on as well, but I don't, we can still discuss it. If anyone still has any questions, or maybe if you want to touch on.
Maura, as a former teacher, was certainly fully supportive of after we learned more of it. I inquired a little bit with Ken, people inquired with you if our system can handle. I guess it's not really a big deal from an IT perspective. It's like the website, et cetera, and so on. But I certainly trust the judgment of Maura as a past teacher. Is appreciative of it, and I do like the fact that Guilford did not roll it out and just, okay, let's all do it. They took it a little bit slow, let teachers get comfortable with it, and that seemed to be the template that we would follow, Stephanie, as well. But people are receptive to it, and if we can help our students, that's our main goal here.
And I think looking to, we're looking at it at K-2, but it could be expanded. The other thing we've talked about in the past, like the ARPA funds are available in order to cover this program. And I think that we need to give them as much time as possible. That was the other big part of that discussion, was that we don't want to wait until June or July for these teachers to be getting the training they need in order to roll out this program. We want to give them as much time as possible between the professional developments, the spring, and even the summer having questions. I'm really supportive of it, and I think that it's something we need to.
Probably the item that gave me the most comfort, and this was from a prior discussion of this, was when I inquired about, is this program the main dish or the side dish? Or is the teacher the main dish or the side dish? And the teacher is which again?
I feel like it's the kind of program where the teacher is really guiding the learning. So the teacher is there's like stories that they're going to read out loud to the learners, and there's obviously whole group lessons that are started in each component, no matter if you're looking at the skills block, all block, or the modules. But then once that whole group instruction happens, which is brief, it's not long, it really gives the learners the opportunity to be a little bit more independent, but the teacher is the one who is grouping them based on what their needs are. The teacher is the one who is making sure that whatever, activities or lessons that they're giving them during those small group instruction is really what they need. But it really kind of allows the teacher to work a little bit more closely with them in those small group settings, rather than spending a whole class period teaching whole group the entire time.
I think it's also great for guidance for new teachers. At some point, we're going to be getting some new young blood coming in here, and lesson planning is a huge thing. And if this facilitates that a little bit, everybody wants to wake up at 1 a.m. getting ready for the class. That's the reality of some teachers today,
right?
To prepare and actually do what you're supposed to be doing. So that can help in that respect. But again, still, the teachers are important.
Absolutely.
And this program is for grades.
We're looking at right now, K-5. We have had conversations about, because I know some districts are just, this program is offered up to grade 8. I think one of the most recent conversations we did have about 6 through 8 is just, we're not ready yet to implement something like this. We need to work more on just strategies and helping our teachers to develop some strategies to help our learners to build up that reading, comprehension, vocabulary. So we've talked about some things that we could possibly look at doing, offering trainings and whatnot. But as of right now, we didn't think that was the best direction for grade 6 to 8.
And as far as the implementation, there are several modules to this, and you're going to start with one.
Yes, we are definitely looking at one, possibly 2. We do have a meeting lined up next week on Tuesday with our literacy team to kind of start talking about all of that and figuring out what we feel would be the best direction to go, so that it's not too overwhelming for our teachers, but that it's not, that we're giving them enough, you know, for the year. So that's definitely something, and I think, you know, we want to also consider the teacher's opinion. I know not all of them got to see it in action, and that's one thing that, I mean, me personally, going and being able to see it in action was very, very different from, and I've done a lot of research on it. And so actually being able to see it in action, it was really exciting. So I know that there are some teachers who are going to want to just like jump in and go all in, but I'm not sure if that is the best thing to do right from the start, because doing something like that could be overwhelming. It could burn people out, and we don't want any of that. So we're going to be having discussions on that in the future. If this is the direction we go on, what we think is the best rollout for everybody.
Yeah. This has been well thought out, and well researched. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Before we go for a vote? Okay. And its actual name is, it just says literacy program. I'd like to identify it.
EL education.
EL education.
Yes, it stands for expeditionary learning.
What's the rest of it?
Expeditionary learning.
That's why they call it EL, because they don't want to say
Yeah.
all the syllables.
Oh, okay, I get it. I'm sorry. Okay, so we need a motion to approve the EL education literacy program for grades K-5.
So moved.
Moved by Linda, seconded
Second.
by Lindsay. Okay, I'm just gonna check Maura and Amanda, are you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, because what I forgot before, when we have to do roll call. So all those in favor, we'll start with Jason.
Yes. Bob Moore, yes.
Lindsay, yes.
Lucy Petrella, yes.
Amy Rebecca, yes. John Manoa, yes.
Mariah Roy, yes.
Linda Darcy, yes.
Maura
Maura Carminello, yes.
and Amanda's not on right now.
Who's here?
No, I'm here, yes.
Okay, good. So it's passed. It's making a decision. So
Wish you guys all the luck in implementing it.
thank you. Done a lot of work on it.
Thank you for putting up all of our questions and answering all of our questions, and
I will say we already have a free PD lined up at the end of the month, so we're joining with another school.
Yeah, well, it was already recommended by the achievement committee anyway to approve, so. Going on to communication. Sorry.
Just finishing committee report, I just want to make sure that figure, we did review iReady and SAT scores, and we reviewed elective offerings at this grade 6 through 12 level, as well as touch on the future committee meeting dates. Looks like we're going to do the fourth Wednesday of the month. We're going to have a standing student achievement, so that will be going back to that. And for the sake of time, being 8:30, I won't go into the whole meeting, but I do encourage you guys all to take a look at it and watch the video.
What time on the fourth Wednesday? 4:30?
Yes,
4:30.
4:30, and the committee chairs will decide the format. We talked about that worked pretty well, but there might be other situations we want to get together in person, so.
Right. And we can do that from meeting to meeting, correct? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah, you just have to tell us and.
With regard to item 12, communications, as I've done in the past.
Item C.
Did I miss? Oh, God.
Finance
Sorry.
committee, so-
Yeah, I wrote over the top of it.
I was with you. I wasn't gonna point it out.
What?
I said I was with you. I wasn't gonna point it out.
Jason, care of that, we can take full advantage.
Try to move it along.
For finance committee, we just discussed the budget. Kim was great, went over a bunch of different things, answered all their questions that the finance committee members had. Really, they didn't have much input other than obviously wish we could reduce the per pupil.
And they had asked a lot of questions too, like, what are the glaring, topics that are currently we're facing budget wise? And, we talked about it being FTEs, the per pupil. I think a lot of the questions that they had, Kim had answered. And Kim had stressed that a lot of this budget was, statutory obligations, and there wasn't really a lot that was addition to more baseline
And I think it's excellent having that committee working again because they're community members from both communities. And the explanations, it's so glaringly obvious when Kim starts to talk about budget and the thinking and what goes on behind the scenes before a number gets put on the paper and what considerations are made and stuff like that. And she's right on target. That really says a lot to the community members, and they can take that out. And they've said that, you know, we can take it out to the community. So anything else? That's it. Okay, going on to communications. As I said in the past, whenever I get a communication, I send it out so everyone has already seen everything that I've gotten. So I didn't know if anyone else got something that perhaps none of us.
I think we got something from Antonio Almador over that I don't think I didn't see any response to.
No, because I believe.
It was a student matter.
It was a student matter, yeah.
Forwarded to the administration. They believe the administration
They
responded
were
to
already
it.
on it, yeah.
I think because of that and we haven't really dealt with the comments from Drea. And that, you know, maybe it's time to look at whether or not we should be having, you know, a discussion with students, a discussion, whether it's in the well-being committee or something else about bullying and racial issues, because it seems to have not been corrected yet. You know, this student was related in Puerto Rican issues. So I think it's, you know, it might be wise for us to take a more aggressive approach to dealing with this.
Yeah, I would caution having any discussion on a student matter without knowing whether that's okay.
Well, but just the general topic, I think.
Yeah, I don't mean that.
Bob was saying about bullying and racism, and it has come up on a few occasions and.
When does District Climate meet?
It's meeting, we just got a,
It's the 22nd. Is that what it is? 22nd?
Did you say?
March 22nd. I'll look on my phone.
I just wrote it in. Yes, March 22nd.
His recommendations were really about our policy and bullying and how we get that information out, and there were more board-related activities, not school-related activities that this man was suggesting. So, yeah, I think it's time.
Well, we can certainly go over that. There are quite a number of policies.
Oh,
that
yeah,
exist,
but
so,
I mean,
I think they do exist.
Suggestion that we bring them up and start talking about it again.
Anyone else? Okay, we're up to public comment. At the end of the meeting, those in person.
Good evening. My name is Craig Gradini. I'm president of the Region 13 Education Association. After watching the last two budget work sessions and receiving numerous communications of concern from Region 13 members, I felt compelled to speak to you today. I feel it's very important to share our concerns. While we understand the last 2 weeks were work sessions and the board's questions and comments are aimed toward gathering information and discussion so the board can make informed decisions on the proposed budget, we still ask that the board speak and ask questions about specific positions and not about specific people in those positions. In a small district like ours, it's often easy to determine who fills any discussed position at the moment. Yet many teachers have multiple certifications, so one never knows what person will be in a particular position next year. The people change, the positions don't. Additionally, the association encourages you to continue to ask data-driven questions on a global scale. We understand the board's intent of due diligence when discussing programs in specific classes to increase your knowledge of how these programs work. We work daily with our very qualified team of administrators and know that they're making very difficult decisions with the well-being of all of our learners in mind. Thank you again for all the hard work that you do. We appreciate your daily support and anticipate a very responsible budget that we too will be supporting going into referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? No, it's so quiet sitting up there the whole time. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak?
Where's Carl?
Right, she's here, but Carl, if you're there and you want to talk, you can. Oh, Carl does hand up, there we go. Hold on, Carl, I'm promoting you.
I've had to.
Yes.
Jeff. I wanna tell him
Carl?
about my people.
You hear me?
There he is.
I wasn't gonna say much. I was stay quiet, but you encouraged me.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I turned in late. I didn't hear the whole presentation on the project. But knowing the space that we have available in our district, I would like to see an efficiency study of space. And everything on the table, no holes barred. Let's be efficient with the space that we already have in hand. And to be building at additional spaces when we don't really need it. And I'm going to keep mentioning that field building, that field house, that storage building. That's almost 4,000 square feet. That's twice the size of my home, for crying out loud. And you tell me that's not going to increase the operating costs quite a bit? Give it some thought. And I thank you for your time, and I thank you folks for all that you do. I mean, no harm to any of you. Take care.
God bless,
Thank
Carl.
you.
Have a good night, Carl.
Is there anyone else? No, no one else, okay. We are down to adjournment. Motion to adjourn.
Second, please.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
There'll be no votes. Thank you all.
It's gonna abstain if you ask.
I want to have-